In episode 4 of House of the Dragon, the show jumps forward another year or so to when Daemon has been crowned King of the Narrow Sea and returned to King's Landing. Later, King Viserys is informed of a rumour involving his daughter and Daemon, forcing him to make Rhaenyra marry. By 109 AC, Daemon Targaryen and his army of sellswords and cutthroats controlled all but 2 of the islands, and the Sea Snake's fleets had taken firm control of the waters between. During this brief moment of victory, Prince Daemon declared himself King of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea, and Lord Corlys placed a crown upon his head, but their kingdom was far from secure. Though the Stepstones were engulfed in blood and fire, King Viserys and his court remain unperturbed. Queen Alicent had soon proved to be as fertile as she was pretty. In 107 AC, she bore the king a healthy son, naming him Aegon, after the Conqueror. 2 years later, she produced a daughter for the king, Helaena, in 110 AC. She bore him a second son, Aemond, who was said to be half the size of his elder brother, but twice as fierce. Yet, Princess Rhaenyra continued to sit at the foot of the Iron Throne when her father held court, and his grace began bringing her to meetings of the small council as well. Though many lords and knights sought her favour, the princess had eyes only for Sir Criston Cole, the young champion of the Kingsguard, and her constant companion. Sir Criston protects the princess from her enemies, but who protects the princess from Sir Criston? Queen Alicent asked one day at court. The amity between her grace and her stepdaughter had proved short-lived, for both Rhaenyra and Alicent aspired to be the first lady of the realm. And though the queen had given the king not 1, but 2 male heirs, Viserys had done nothing to change the order of succession. The Princess of Dragonstone remained his acknowledged heir, with half the lords of Westeros sworn to defend her rights. Those who asked, "What of the ruling of the Great Council of 101?" found their words falling on deaf ears. The matter had been decided, as far as King Viserys was concerned. It was not an issue His Grace cared to revisit. Still, questions persisted, not the least from Queen Alicent herself. Loudest amongst her supporters was her father, Sir Otto Hightower, Hand of the King. Pushed too far on the matter, in 109 AC, Viserys stripped Sir Otto of his chain of office and named in his place the Tanctium Lord of Harrenhal, Lionel Strong. "This hand will not hector me," His Grace proclaimed. Even after Sir Otto had returned to Oldtown, a Queen's Party still existed at court. A group of powerful lords friendly to Queen Alicent and supportive of the rights of her sons. Against them was pitted the party of the princess. King Viserys loved both his wife and daughter, and hated conflict and contention. He strove all his days to keep the peace between his women, and to please both with gifts and gold and honours. So long as he lived and ruled and kept the balance, the feasts and tourneys continued as before, and peace prevailed throughout the realm. In 111 AC, a great tourney was held at King's Landing, on the 5th anniversary of the king's marriage to Queen Alicent. At the opening feast, the queen wore a green gown, whilst the princess dressed dramatically in Targaryen red and black. Note was taken, and thereafter it became the custom to refer to greens and blacks when talking of the Queen's Party and the party of the princess, respectively. In the tourney itself, the blacks had much the better of it when Sir Criston Cole, wearing Princess Rhaenyra's favour, unhorsed all of the Queen's champions, including 2 of her cousins and her youngest brother, Sir Gain Hightower. Yet one was there who wore neither green nor black, but rather gold and silver. Prince Daemon had at last returned to court. Wearing a crown and styling himself King of the Narrow Sea, he appeared unannounced in the skies above King's Landing on his dragon, circling thrice above the tawny grounds. But when at last he came to earth, he knelt before his brother and offered up his crown as a token of his love and fealty. Viserys returned the crown and kissed Daemon on both cheeks, welcoming him home, and the lords and commoners sent up a thunderous cheer as the sons of the Spring Prince were reconciled. Amongst those cheering loudest was Princess Rhaenyra, who was thrilled at the return of her favourite uncle and begged him to stay a while. This much is known. As to what happened afterward, Here we must look to our more dubious chroniclers. Prince Daemon did remain at King's Landing for half a year. That is beyond dispute. He even resumed his seat on the small council, according to Grand Maester Runkiter, but neither age nor exile had changed his nature. Daemon soon took up again with old companions from the Gold Cloaks, and returned to the establishments along the streets of Silk, where he had been such a valued patron. Though he treated Queen Alicent with all the courtesy due her station, there was no warmth between them, and men said that the prince was notably cool toward her children, especially his nephews, Aegon and Aemond, whose birth had pushed him still lower in the order of succession. Princess Rhaenyra was a different matter. Daemon spent long hours in her company, enthralling her with the tales of his journeys and battles. He gave her pearls and silks and books, and a jade tiara said once to have belonged to the Empress of Leng. Read poems to her, dined with her, hawked with her, sailed with her, entertained her by making mock of the greens at court, the lickspittles, fawning over Queen Alicent and her children. He praised her beauty, declaring her to be the fairest maid in all the 7 kingdoms. Uncle and niece began to fly together almost daily, racing Syrax against Caraxes to Dragonstone and back. Here is where our sources diverge. Grand Maester Runkiter says only that the brothers quarrelled again, and Prince Daemon departed King's Landing to return to the Stepstones and his wars. Of the cause of the quarrel, he does not speak. Others assert that it was at Queen Alicent's urging that Viserys sent Daemon away. But Septon Eustace and Mushroom tell another tale, or rather, 2 such tales, each different from the other. Eustace, the less salacious of the 2, writes that Prince Daemon seduced his niece, the princess, and claimed her maidenhood. When the lovers were discovered abed together by Sir Aric of the Kingsguard and brought before the king, Rhaenyra insisted she was in love with her uncle and pleaded with her father for leave to marry him. King Viserys would not hear of it, however, and reminded his daughter that Prince Daemon already had a wife. In his wrath, he confined his daughter to her chambers, told his brother to depart, and commanded both of them never to speak of what had happened. The tale as told by Mushroom is far more depraved, as is oft the case with his testimony. According to the dwarf, it was Sir Christian Cole that the princess yearned for, not Prince Daemon. But Sir Christian was a true knight, noble and chaste, and mindful of his vows, and though he was in her company day and night, he had never so much as kissed her, nor made any declaration of his love. When he looks at you, he sees the little girl you were, not the woman you've become, Daemon told his niece. But I can teach you how to make him see you as a woman. He began by giving her kissing lessons, if Mushroom can be believed. From there, the prince went on to show his niece how best to touch a man to bring him pleasure, an exercise that sometimes involved Mushroom himself and his alleged enormous member. Daemon taught the girl to disrobe enticingly, suckled at her teats to make them larger and more sensitive, and flew with her on dragonback to lonely rocks in Blackwater Bay, where they could disport naked all day unobserved, and the princess could practice the art of pleasuring a man with her mouth. At night, he would smuggle her from her rooms dressed as a page boy, and take her secretly to brothels on the street of Silk, where the princess could observe men and women in the act of love, and learn more of these womanly arts from the harlots of King's Landing. Just how long these lessons continued, Mushroom does not say, but unlike Septon Eustace, he insists that Princess Rhaenyra remained a maiden, for she wished to preserve her innocence as a gift for her beloved. But when at last she approached her White Knight, using all she had learned, Sir Christian was horrified and spurned her. The whole tale soon came out, in no small part thanks to Mushroom himself. King Viserys at first refused to believe a word of it, until Prince Daemon confirmed the tale was true. "Give the girl to me to wife," he purportedly told his brother. Who else would take her now? Instead, King Viserys sent him into exile, never to return to the 7 kingdoms on pain of death. Lord Strong, the king's hand, argued that the prince should be put to death immediately as a traitor, but Septon Eustace reminded his grace that no man is as accursed as the kinslayer. Of the aftermath, these things are certain, Daemon Targaryen returned to the Stepstones and resumed his struggle for those barren, storm-swept rocks. Grand Maester Runketar and Sir Harold Westerling both died in 112 AC. Sir Christian Cole was named the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard in Sir Harold's place, and the Archmaesters of the Citadel sent Maester Mellos to the Red Keep to take up the Grand Maester's chain and duties. Elsewise, King's Landing returned to its customary tranquility for the best part of 2 years, until 113 AC, when Princess Rhaenyra turned 16, took possession of Dragonstone as her own seat, and married. Long before any man had reason to doubt her innocence, the question of selecting a suitable consort for Rhaenyra had been of concern to King Viserys and his council. Great lords and dashing knights fluttered around her like moths around a flame, vying for her favour. When Rhaenyra visited the Trident in 112, the sons of Lord Bracken and Lord Blackwood fought a duel over her, and the younger son of House Frey made so bold as to ask openly for her hand. Fool Frey, he was called thereafter. In the west, Sir Jason Lannister and his own twin, Sir Tyland, vied for her during a feast at Casterly Rock. The sons of Lord Tully of Riverrun, Lord Tyrell of Highgarden, Lord Oakheart of Old Oak, and Lord Tarly of Hornhill paid court to the princess, as did the Hand's eldest son, Sir Harwin Strong. Breakbones, as he was called, was heir to Harrenhal, and said to be the strongest man in the Seven Kingdoms. Viserys even talked of wedding Rhaenyra to the Prince of Dorne, as a way of bringing the Dornish into the realm. Queen Alicent had her own candidate, her eldest son, Prince Aegon, Rhaenyra's half-brother. But Aegon was a boy, the princess 10 years his elder. Moreover, the two half-siblings had never gotten on well. All the more reason to bind them together in marriage, the queen argued. Viserys did not agree. The boy is Alicent's own blood, he told Lord Strong. She wants him on the throne. The best choice, king and small council finally agreed, would be Rhaenyra's cousin, Laenor Valyrion. Though the Great Council of 101 had ruled against his claim, the Valyrion boy remained a grandson of Prince Aemon Targaryen of hallowed memory, a great-grandson of the Old King himself. Such a match would unite and strengthen the royal bloodline, and regain the Iron Throne the friendship of the Sea Snake with his powerful fleet. One objection was raised. Laenor Valyrion was now 19 years of age, yet had never shown any interest in women. Instead, he surrounded himself with handsome squires of his own age, and was said to prefer their company. But Grand Maester Mellos dismissed this concern out of hand. "What of it?" he said. "I do not like the taste of fish, but when fish is served, I eat it." Thus was the match decided. King and council had neglected to consult the princess, however. Now, one good change from the books is Laenor Valyrion, because in the books, Rhaenyra's desire not to be with him makes a lot of sense, while in the show, Laenor is a dragon-riding war veteran with the most powerful parents in Westeros to help support their child's claim to the Iron Throne. So, even though he's clearly gay, it's an easy trade-off, while in the books, Laenor never serves in his father's army, and never gave the impression of being that useful in a conflict with Otto and Alicent's children. However, show Laenor is the ideal candidate, and I'm glad Rhaenyra recognizes that. Finally, now the show has confirmed Rhaenyra and Criston Cole slept together. It would be such an interesting twist if Sir Criston is the father of Rhaenyra's children, or at least her eldest son. I won't get into it too much since it will spoil later episodes, but this would be really fascinating to see. Anyway, this was a really great episode of House of the Dragon, and we can't wait to make more videos on the differences between show and book. In the meantime, check out our playlists on every chapter of A Game of Thrones Explained, and our entire A Feast for Dragons book explained. Also, when you get the chance, try out Fantasy Flights, A Game of Thrones board game, digital edition.